Hello. Welcome to Out of the Woods with Jake Jones, episode 6. I didn't come up with a title yet. Usually I have the title ahead of time. We'll figure it out.
All right.
But I'm here with my friend Ryan. I don't know your last name, but
Ryan Parker, I'm glad to be here, man.
Hell
This
yeah.
is a long
Welcome.
time coming. I appreciate you.
No, this is great. This is great. So we didn't really have a plan. We're just going to shoot the shit, throw out some quotes, throw out some advice, wisdom, a couple stories here or there maybe. But yeah, it's good to have you on, man. It's really awesome to have you on.
And, it's one thing, as we've been growing closer through our commitment to sobriety, I've been looking forward to it, and hopefully getting you into the recovery center to play some music. I know you've been on your guitar a lot more.
Yep.
So I was thinking that the other day when because obviously, I went to the roundup last weekend, Salt City Roundup in Syracuse, and I got on the committee. I'm hoping to get aligned with the signing acts for the talent show. Obviously that's trying to cause my chorus, but
Yeah.
We'll see when I get there what they expect me to do. But I just know the service work is important to me.
Big time. And that's what this feels like for me. I mean, one of the topics at the meeting we went to, I think it was yesterday. It was the noon meeting yesterday, and it was you give it away to keep it.
Absolutely.
And that's what this show is all about. And I think that's just really what, recovery and service work is. There's a Neil Diamond song that I learned the other day where it says something like, love is great because you give it all away and you have it when you still have it when it's gone, or something along those lines.
That makes sense. And also, like say, love is giving somebody the ability to crush you and expecting them not to.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I like that a lot. I'm going to have to write that down.
I can't believe you
the
haven't.
hypothetical book. But yeah. No, but it's good, man. I mean, and that's the biggest thing for me about going back to the meetings and why I'm still kicking myself in the ass for being out of the rooms for almost a year. Is like, but thank God I went back in when I did, because I'm so glad that I met you and obviously everybody else at the groups we go to. But like, just in the few months I've known you, it's just been incredible to see. It's been incredible to witness.
Well, and like we were speaking about that before, some people don't meet by accident, and like there's certain people, I love seeing everybody come in, but there's certain people when I walk in, I'm like, all right, cool, Jake's here, and like other people, because I know they have something I'm going to get from that meeting, and similar stories, obviously, like I said, alcohol was neither mine nor your first choice. And I always told myself, it's like, alcohol is not my problem. It's like, I don't understand. It even came down when I've been on state supervision since 2009 on and off because of my choices. And I even went to my PO one time and I said, I'm not on here for DWI and I'm not on here for, domestic violence while intoxicated. I think I should be able to drink, trying to justify to somebody, pretty much dry snitching on myself immediately. And he sits down and he says, all right, what we'll do, we'll write a letter to the judge, tell him that you want to drink, and we'll see what he says. Immediately, I retracted my statement, and I was like, it's probably not the best idea. Excuse me. So, and then another time I was sitting there and, he says, I go, meetings, I don't think meetings are relevant for me, because I wasn't big into the God thing until I realized that I couldn't do it myself. I tried over and over. And I think I told this to you before, the Serenity Prayer, we start every meeting like that. And I tattooed it on my hand in Chinese because I didn't want to be a hypocrite, so I have it in Chinese, and then I brought Smart Recovery because I didn't like how it was shoved down my throat all the time. But that was my bridge to my faith. And then somebody told me, and get your pen out, that, faith and fear both demand you believe in something you can't see. And it's up to you to decide which one you go with. And I think that's important because finally through the 12 steps and service work and meeting like-minded people like you, I can either, and this was my PO said, he goes, I stand up and he gets his bracelets out and he says, you can either go to like-minded people in AA or you can go to like-minded people at Camp Cupcake, and which is the Justice Center for people that don't know. And immediately I decided I was going to go to AA, with a little bit of persuasion, and I'm so grateful for it. And I even told him one time, I said, mental health is not a priority of mine. And he looks at me like I got six heads. And what I meant was I was in the middle of school and I was in the middle of a final, so I missed the mental health appointment. And the way I say things, he's like, "You're gonna live and die by your tongue." Like the way you say things, whether you mean it that way or not, is perceived one way. So he ended up putting me in jail for the weekend, to which I decided mental health was important, especially when you're in when your head locked down like that.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense, then I've upgraded my meetings with my mental health counselor to every other week, and it's been so beneficial to my sobriety. I even, like I said, I have the semicolon on my neck because of the mental health awareness, and the stigma on it is just so insane, especially as a male, that
Mm-hmm.
we stay away from it. And I think that it's important to let people know that it's okay to not be okay.
It's yeah, and that's I'm glad you touched on the stigma part too, because we're both guys and we can probably name without even thinking like a dozen dudes that we grew up with or still talk to or used to talk to that they think like therapy or psychiatry or any of that is either like a scam or it's fake or it's just for women and it's not masculine.
Right.
And I think it's funny because like some of the most manly masculine dudes I've ever met were at like recovery centers, were at AA, NA, Celebrate, any of those things. And it was one of the things that's, I remember saying this to some of my friends when I first came home from rehab, where I was like I feel like less of a man because I can't get my drinking under control. Like I feel like a loser. I feel like and this was even before that relationship ended because of because of the sobriety. When I was like, I just feel like I'm undesirable. Like I feel like I'm broken. But
We are.
yeah,
So those are
yeah,
valid feelings.
yeah. But it's like I don't know. The like-minded people thing is so big because that was what I was missing last year. Like I mention it in meetings a lot, and you and I have talked about it, where it's like I stopped going to meetings. I didn't start drinking again, but I was like, fuck this. I don't want to do this anymore. And then my life was even more unmanageable last year than it had ever been ever sober. And then, I had my brother-in-law on here in episode 3. And after it was either during the episode or after the episode, he goes, just go back for one meeting, see what happens. And now here we are.
Right.
I'm going to a meeting like every day. My whole weekend, I go to the 9 a.m. noon on Saturday. I go to the 10 a.m. Sunday. Like it's my thing. And it's just a beautiful thing, really. And I'd really wish that there wasn't a stigma because I was actually just talking with my dad earlier today about one of my friends that like he doesn't throw digs or jabs at me about AA or my faith or spirituality or whatever, but he does have in the back of his head that like really old school, like, nope, this is just who I am. There's no point in fixing it. There's no point in changing it. And I was like, man, but you say to me, like, I wish I had your disposition. I wish I could, the way you changed in just the past few years, I want that. And I was like, well,
Right.
if you want what we have,
Exactly. And that's why they say, if you want what you see and what other people have, you have to take those steps. And I say this a lot with the clients that I have where I work, sobriety and recovery are completely different things.
Mm-hmm.
You can be abstinent, but if you're not working on your recovery actively, progressively, then you're going to go back out. It's just a matter of time. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because you're still going to look for that void. And I was filling my void with groups and AA and therapy, and because and I take 19 credits in school, which is insanity. It's because I'm so conditioned to chaos that when I sit in my own feelings, when I'm not doing anything, I get uncomfortable. And that's where the stigma comes in. It's like, that's okay. And when I decide to go the mental health route, I just feel so good about myself. And ego goes both ways, and we put on a facade a lot,
Mm-hmm.
especially as a man. Like I was always under the impression that mental health was needed when you can visually see it, like somebody that has a disability, not thinking that, hello, I'm right here. I have this, I don't drink and I don't drug like other people. Not that drugging is good for anybody, but it's just like we were speaking before we got on the air, like I'm an all-in person. I'm always looking for the most. There is no moderation for me. It doesn't happen, which is unfortunate, but also a blessing because now I've realized that like there is no, I'm addicted to the atmosphere as much as I am the substance. I like the woo girls. Buck Cherry comes on and the girl, whoa, yeah, this is my song. I like when my phone rings. I like the validation of being the center of attention, like, but now I'm a center of attention for recovery and it feels so much better than, and that's where the anonymity, I have mixed feelings about the anonymity because I didn't care when I was in the newspaper and I didn't care when I was running amok in the streets, but now it's like, well, I don't want nobody to know I'm in recovery. It's like, you know, my daughter, she's the ride or die. She stuck with me for, no, she's such a blessing because I didn't hide the craziness. So I don't feel like I need to hide my recovery, and I've had that talk with her before. Like, unfortunately, and Jelly Roll has a song called Crosses that's like, I don't want my burdens to be your cross to carry. And that's such a deep meaning, like, unfortunately, because of decisions that I made, she has to be careful, which also puts a deep perspective on my recovery.
Yeah. No, and that's what I tell people a lot. I remember when I first came home and like actually even before then, because I had about 5.5 months without a drink before I went to rehab. But I would go on Facebook. I mean, even every time I slipped, I would quit and I'd be like, oh, 90 days, woo. And then I would start drinking again. And then it'd be like 10 days. And I got validation from that, but it was also just a reminder of the people that, they tell you you're supposed to do it for yourself. Yes, but I didn't see it that way.
No.
I wanted to do it for my family, my friends, my colleagues. I mean, I burnt the britches. I burnt the bridges.
probably some britches too.
Yeah, guaranteed burnt some britches. I burned the bridges. I salted the fields. I burned the ditches. I dug up the roads. And it was nice for me to be able to show people like, hey, this is a part of me trying to say I'm so sorry for the way I was. And even now, like whenever I hit a milestone, like 1,000 days, 1,200 days, whatever days, I throw it up on Facebook, and just that it is validation, and it could be seen as attention seeking. That's what some of the guys at my sober living house said, but I was like, maybe, but it's also, there's a lot of people that have reached out to me and that wouldn't have thought of recovery or sobriety as an abstraction. Some people have even said, like, I didn't think I could do it, but the fact that you can do it, I could probably do it because you were a fucking mess. I was like, exactly. Yes. Use me as an example, because that's what I genuinely feel like I'm here for. I'm never going to be the golden goose wonder kid, that I thought I was going to end up being, but I can help other people make sure that they are able to reach that, without any slip ups. And if you do slip up, it's fine. You're going to be okay.
You've built tools over time, so it's not going back. You're not starting over. You're just restarting, if that makes sense. And I think that was one of the most ignorant statements I ever made in many of my failed sobrieties was, I'm going to have to find a reason to get sober that's not for me. I like the way this feels. I like the chaos. I enjoy the social networking that I get. Well, you're social networking with probably not the best people, and then it's like, well, why can't I find somebody awesome? It's like, well, because you're a piece of shit right now. So, and it's important to remember that when we decide to do it for us, all of the doing it for everybody else follows suit, and it's like, and they say this, and, you've said it too, anything that you put before your recovery, you will lose. It's, and I tell my clients this also, that, if you put, and not that I'm saying half-ass your recovery, but if you put half of the effort into your recovery that you did into using and running amok, you're going to be fine. Because look how exhausting it is to be out, waking up every morning and not only trying to get what you're looking for, But once it's gone, you're right back to that same feeling of emptiness. And I'm finally content with where life is. I don't mind being bored.
No.
It's actually quite rewarding. Like, and it's okay to sit there and reflect on what you've accomplished. And I know, like, sometimes in recovery we'll feel like we're spinning in the mud. It's like we're not getting anywhere. But we're not going backwards. And I think that's the most important thing to remember. Is like mud is much better than quicksand. And I was drowning, and I never wanted to die, but like I knew what I was doing to myself. And it was the only reason that I didn't want it to happen was because my ego. It's like, I don't want it to reflect on other people. I don't want to hurt other people. But in the middle of my addiction, I was doing exactly the things that I wasn't trying to do. So now that I have a lengthy amount of sobriety under my belt, and when I started my work as a peer advocate and a recovery coach, it started as a selfish act because I was like, well, if I do this, then I didn't waste 20 years. It's like, well, that's not a terrible reason to be selfish, like to help other people. And that's where the service work comes in. I enjoy these, the camaraderie that like you and I have and other people, and going out with the people that I meet at these meetings, and golfing and movies. And, we went up to the golf simulator the other day, and my golf game is still struggling, but I blame that on not being out since October, but that's a justification that's still there.
Yeah.
It's just in hindsight, I'm just not a good golfer, but I enjoy it, and it's sober. And, and I've got to the point now where my friends can have a drink and it doesn't bother me. But that's where I was like, alcohol's not my problem. But every time I drank, I found myself calling the plug or calling the toxic exes or doing all these things that accumulated from the start of drinking. And when I see people sober from alcohol, I'm just so impressed, because I know how hard the dry goods were for me to get away from, but it's not thrown in my face. I don't walk by a heroin aisle at Walmart.
Right.
Like
we wouldn't be having, if a heroin aisle existed, we would not be having this conversation.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like nobody comes up to me at a bachelor party and is like, how come you're not, sticking on something in your arm? It's like, but like oftentimes you wonder, like, say you go out with a female to a dinner and she has a drink, and it's like, how do I explain that I'm not drinking? Most people don't care. Yeah, and that's the thing is we try to, I don't want to explain it. It's like, no is a complete sentence. Like there's no, like it doesn't have to be a reason, and it's like, I used to like, well, I'll drink cranberry juice so that they don't know it's not vodka and cranberry. And here I am trying to figure out how I can manipulate people into seeing that I'm not drinking. And it's like, that's all you're still doing the same exhausting stuff that put you back into that, that realm of addiction.
Exact. Yeah. And I still have, I don't work at the restaurant anymore, but I worked at the bistro for most of last year. I go in every now and then to help out and stuff. And that's like my second family. So I'll pop in and hang out, and I'll still have times, like maybe once a month or so, where I'll sit at the bar and I'll get a ginger beer that's in a beer bottle, but it's just, ginger ale basically. And, it's nice. It's a positive reminder and a negative reminder, because it's a negative reminder because I'm like, oh, damn, I'm not like these people. But it's positive because I don't have to feel the way that they're going to feel the next day.
Right.
And I was actually just talking to somebody after a meeting yesterday about that, about how like the bistro when I was out, I would be there from like 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. like every day. And now the fact that I'm able to go there and just have a ginger beer and sit and still be treated normally. And that was a big thing for me, where, it was like, well, people, like I said earlier, people are going to think I'm weird or a loser or a wimp because I'm not drinking. But really, like you said, no is a complete sentence. You're good. And I find that I still, like I mentioned in the meeting Friday night, like I'll still have these lapses where it's like, okay, there's no drugs in my system. There's no alcohol in my system. There's a darkness inside of me still that wants to act up and do crazy shit, which it wouldn't probably ruin my life. I wouldn't lose my job, but it would cause me so much stress that it just wouldn't be worth it. And that was like that was a real sobering moment for me that I'm able to identify that before it happens, you know. And you mentioned the selfishness part, and I agree with you there. That's what this whole show is. I said in the first episode, like, this is for me. I started the show before I started going back to meetings, because I was like, I want to have a platform where it can be a meeting that I'd want to go to. And now it's funny because I want to go to all the meetings all the time.
And we were speaking about that prior to this. It's like, and that's why I don't claim a home group, because I'm everywhere because of the stories that I hear. You know, I like reflecting on people's stories, and they resonate differently in my accumulation of sobriety. But I like to hear different people. And I say this a lot, like, the only thing better than seeing the same people over and over is seeing new people come in, because I know how I felt. I was like, this is so embarrassing. It's like, well, there's nothing embarrassing about realizing you have a problem and trying to take control of it. What's embarrassing is realizing you have this issue and just continuing on with what you're doing. And that's how it was for a long time. You know, I went to countless detoxes, many inpatients, you know, overdoses, incarceration. And it's like, none of that was good enough. You know, none of that sparked any interest in getting sober, because I was smarter than everybody. You know, I knew what I wanted, when in reality, I had no clue what this life could give me. You know, like, as with the roundup that I went to, I got paid to go there. They paid for my hotel. Like, how blessed am I to be able to work in recovery, to help people, and then get the monetary reward from it? You know, it's like I said, it's unimaginable, and never in my wildest dreams. And somebody called me the poster boy for recovery the other day, and I didn't know how to accept that. And I was like, I love that, but also, like, so can you be. You know, it's like, I'm not unique. You know, I just chose a different life. I just am so incredibly grateful for the people that I've met and the network that I've established, and just all the help that I've got along the way. And you can't get help if you don't ask.
Exact. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the thing about newcomers, because that will get me emotional, especially when, you know, there's a few people, I won't say names obviously, but there's a few people that even from when I first quit drinking and came home from rehab, people that texted me and they're like, hey, you know, how did you do it? I don't think I can do it. And then, you know, they get sober for a little bit, then they go back out. They go back and forth. And then all of a sudden I walk in and, like, they're chairing a meeting, or I walk in and they're coming in, you know, like a couple minutes behind me. And I'm just like, welcome. Like, it's incredible to me. Like, one of our guys, the guy we had on episode 2, he just hit 500 days Friday. Awesome. And I literally bawled my eyes out. Absolutely. I was so happy about that. I mean, it was, you know, we shouldn't be here.
No.
That's the biggest thing. Like, you know, and, you know, our higher power, who I call God, I think you call God, like, kept us here for a reason. Like, it's going to be a lifelong commitment, and we're never going to be able to fully mend all the things that we've broken. And we probably don't deserve to mend all the things that we've broken, but we can try.
I agree.
And, yeah, dude, the people that I met, I mean, I still talk to some of the guys that I lived with down in Philly, and being able to see them, you know, on social media, or talk to them on the phone or whatever, and hear just the progress they made in just the 3 years since then, which is crazy, by the way. Time flies when you're not fucked up all the time.
And it goes slow. It's like yeah. There is no, and the way you're talking about, this is a lifelong commitment to our recovery. Is I watched Bill W., obviously the one that wrote the Alcoholics Anonymous Bible, I'll call it, for lack of better terms, on his deathbed. He was dying of emphysema, and the last thing he asked for was a drink of alcohol before he died. And that was like, as I'm watching this movie, I'm like, it brought into real perspective, like, this does not stop. You know, that monkey is just doing, I don't do leg day at the gym. And if he does, I'm screwed. You know, like, I'm hoping he's just doing push-ups like me, because then I can hold the door shut, you know. Yeah. But it was just like, it's one of those things where I'm like, I really have to put the effort that's needed to maintain that recovery. And like you said, if we got what we deserved, I'd be 6 foot under somewhere. You know, like I said, and now I'm finally getting what everybody deserved around me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like God bless my parents, man. Like our parents. Like I put them people. I couldn't imagine, you know, and it hurt. My daughter doesn't have a substance abuse issue, and I worry about it every day. So I couldn't imagine the sleepless nights. And luckily, through my addiction, I kept semi morals and my values close, which was important. I didn't steal. I worked my ass off, and I felt like I earned this. This is my
Yeah,
reward.
yeah.
So when I said that to somebody, I'm like, I didn't steal. It's like, well, you don't think you stole your parents' peace of mind? I was like, oh man, that hit hard, that hit, you know. And the job that I have now, I was in a press release. You know, I made the newspaper. I think I showed you that article. And I tell you what an emotional day, because if I fielded one phone call, I fielded 100.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them were the same thing. It's like, you made the paper and you weren't getting arrested. You know, it's like, well, geez, thanks. You know, but it was like, but it's very true. Like now I'm being recognized for things that are positive. You know, like when I, you know, like I said, I'm still property of the state for a little while because of my choices. But like they hold me, and they've said this, and I'll keep names out, but you know, we hold you to a higher standard than other people because we see where you're at in your recovery. You are an example of what can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, that's great, but I still don't agree with the things you're telling me to do
Mm-hmm.
because I'm still the manipulator, and I'm still, you know, those things are, it takes work. Like I said, you know, the character defects we spoke about today, some of those I was quite fond of. You know, like
Yeah.
I enjoyed those. My ego was huge, and you know, I liked being stubborn and self-centered, and until it was somebody told me, it's like, what happens if you don't meet everybody's expectations? I'm like, yeah, right. Yeah, that was my response. Like complete egotistical, self-centered, and it's like I can't imagine that. Like I used to climb cell phone towers, and I was that guy. Like on the back of my truck, it said, "My balls connect your calls," because I wanted everybody to know that I was awesome. You know, it's like, except behind closed doors, I was far from awesome. You know, I was fighting my demons, and I was manipulating and tugging on my parents' heartstrings, and it's just so great that I don't have to do that anymore. And like I was talking about our parents, I gave them a million reasons to turn their back, you know,
Same.
and luckily they did not, which is why I chose this route of recovery, the recovery field. A lot of people don't have the support that I had. You know, a lot of people have burnt the bridges that aren't repairable per se. And, you know, the resentment that some people hold, I think it's important to remember that was built at one time on overwhelming love, you know, and then it turns to resentment. And hopefully, you know, you figure it out before the worst happens. You know, they said, what's your biggest fear in life? And I was like, at some point, I'm going to have to do this life without my old man,
Yeah.
you know, and that scares the shit out of me because to this day, you know, like, but now he knows that I'm not manipulating. And if I call and say, hey, yo, can you do this or this? It's not, he knows that I'm being valid with what I'm saying. I'm not bullshitting. What I say is true, and what I mean is what I say. What I say is what I mean. I don't have to do that other stuff. I don't have to remember the lies. I don't have to. And it wasn't even the lies. It was me thinking he was dumb enough to believe it.
Right.
You,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and it's it's a tough one because you can love somebody to death, you know, and that was the thing is my dad's very well off, and I knew I wasn't going to have to live in the streets. I knew that I just had to listen to him bitch for a little while, and I was going to get everything I wanted. And you know, it's, you know, I'm just so grateful for him, you know, and I could never repay him for the bail and the lawyers and the cars and everything that I've wrecked. And this is where the, you know, the amends comes in. I'm like, he says, if you stay sober, we're even. You know, that's all I ever want. And then part of me is like, yeah, but do you believe that? It's like, yeah. And he does, and he means it. Like we were talking about it. He'll do anything for anybody. Not the most humble person in the world, but he's built this concrete heart because of the things that I've done, you know, and it's finally coming to where he just believes everything I say, and I'm so grateful for that.
And it's one of those things too where if you were to tell me back then that I would have been able to earn the trust back with everybody. My first thought would have been to laugh. My second thought would have been like, oh, cool. That means I can start tricking everybody. In a couple of years, I can start tricking everybody again. Just like when this past week. And then even worse so, I would trick myself. Like you mentioned because I also, I don't want to say privileged, but grew up lucky,
right?
I would say. I knew my parents were never going to kick me out and I knew that if I needed to go somewhere, if I needed money, or if I flamed out, I was going to be taken care of. But there'd just be some bumps along the way that I'd have to deal with, or I could just ignore it and keep getting drunk and high, which is usually what I would do. But it's funny now, like, if I end up short with cash on something, I don't have to make up this elaborate 8-part story of like, well, I had my subscription to Netflix that overdrafted, and then I went to the ATM, and now they charge $4.50 instead of $3.50. So I really just need $8. It's like, okay, yeah,
and I need it in cash. You
yeah.
It's like that was the thing too. It's how many reasons, like. No, you can't pay the bill for me. I need it in cash. And like they're not stupid. And sometimes your biggest support's your biggest enabler, but they don't. It's what do you do as a parent? That's the thing. It's like your son or daughter is out doing these things, but if you don't help them, they're still gonna do it until they're ready to stop. So would you rather have me out selling drugs? Or would you rather give me the cash? And I knew I could use that, and, not to, if it's a female, would you rather have them out doing whatever? Or would you rather give them the cash and have them keep their respect of their body or their mind?
Right.
And it's the insanity of addiction. Like I had this going thing with my parents where if I sent them a text message of a county, that's where I was locked up because it was so relevant and so prominent that I might not have long to text you. So like when I'm pulled over, I know I'm riding dirty. I know something's going on. So I'm only going to get a quick message. It's going to be Oswego or Onondaga or Jefferson or St. Louis or wherever I was running amok. That's where I'm locked up. And it was that. And I sent this to my dad one time and I didn't end up getting pulled over. And then I didn't end up getting arrested that time. And he sends me a message later. He goes, "Do you need bail?" Which I thought was funny because if I did, I wouldn't be able to respond to this text message.
Right.
So I'm like, no, I'm good. Thanks. But it's so important. I'm just so grateful that my parents were just saints.
Same. And, even now still, I'll never be able to repay them for the shit I put them through. I mean, my dad and I we were talking earlier today. I was over at my parents' house before he came in here, and I was telling him, I was like, yeah, I go, you're not supposed to romanticize. I go, but thank God, like you mentioned, like you still had like your morals or whatever while you were out, and I told my dad literally verbatim, I was like, I still had my gut. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know how. There were so many situations where I should have been arrested or beaten up or killed, and I either got out before it happened, I either talked my way out of it, or somebody there, like I pulled like a nepotism card. I can remember there was a time where I actually left the old studio and I was hammered and I had a cup just like that and it was just straight Jack Daniels and I'm just stumbling around sipping it and I ended up pissing in public and it was like midnight Black Friday and a cop sees me and my stupid ass tries to run away from a fucking cop car. And then they stop me. And then as they stop me, another cop car pulls in and then a third one pulls in. And it just so happened that like one of the officers was a friend of the family and two of the other ones were dudes I went to high school with. They knew that I was just, I wasn't going to cause any criminal mischief or anything. And that as soon as they came up to me, I started freaking out. I mean, I was spouting out like phone numbers, birthdays. I gave them my social. I was like, I'm just super drunk and I want to go home. And they're like, yeah, we know, we're taking you home. And they're like, Jake, if we see you out again, you're going to spend the night in jail. And I was like, just kill me. Like, I would literally rather, because I never got arrested or locked up or anything, but I know, and my dad even told me, he goes, you're on your own if that happens.
And you know what? He's probably full of shit.
Man.
Because my parents said the same thing. It's like my dad's like, call your mother. My mother's like, call your father. But guess what? They were both there. And I was thinking of that too. Like, I always said that it wasn't the drug that was going to kill me. It was the chase.
Yeah.
Because I worked on the road. So like, you mentioned Kensington because you went to rehab in Philly. Well, because intervention is like, well, I knew where to go. The things that I would do to obtain my substance, it's insane. Like, I'd Google where not to go in the city, and I'm like, oh, that's where I'm going.
Yep.
Or, I would look up that local escort and be like, let's be honest, you're probably not selling what you're selling to pay your truck payment. Like, you're probably want the same thing I do. Let's skip all that rigmarole, get what we want, and we'll go on our way. Or just Google the police blotter and find out the most recent arrests. Get on Facebook and message this random person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that was what was going to kill me because the drugs had already tried, and I was just smarter than that. I was, when you look at somebody and you say, we got Narcan, right? Just in case I die. It's like, that's a mental illness. And that brings us back to the mental health that we need because that's not normal to know, like, you go first so I can save you. And as long as you don't die, I'll go. It's like, it's insanity. It's the things that we do and to obtain that is so much harder than recovery.
It was crazy. I mean, it's almost like cheating in school.
Right.
Like kids that get really good at cheating in school. And it's like, if you put half that energy into cheating, into studying, you wouldn't have to cheat. That's what it felt like a lot of the times. I mean, you mentioned like the things we would do to get our substances, and I stole. I never stole. I mentioned this before. I never stole money or jewelry or valuables or anything. But I mentioned like if I was ever in your house and you had alcohol in your house, I was leaving with it.
Right.
I was going through your medicine cabinets. I was gonna do whatever I needed. I mean, just on the amount of alcohol, like limited edition, priceless bottles of like whiskey and scotch and tequila that I stole from my parents. I mean, that would be enough to afford the house that I'm pissed that I can't afford right now. And it's nice to know I don't have to do that anymore, and it's nice. It's still crazy to me that I'm alive. I think that's a weird feeling because I never planned. When I worked at the bank, that's when I let the cat out of the bag and I realized I really had to get my shit together because we were all going for a work function. We were going to a restaurant and I didn't eat breakfast. I didn't eat lunch that day. And my boss at the time was like, you didn't take a lunch today, did you? And I go, no, I want to get hammered. She goes, what are you going to get for dinner? And I go, I'm going to get 2 Manhattans and a house salad. She goes, really? That's it? And I go, I'm an alcoholic. And I remember saying that out loud to my boss and my colleagues. And immediately after I said that, I was like, oh, fuck, I am, aren't I? And, we ended up talking about it before I ended up leaving for rehab because I worked there before I left. And she straight up asked me, she goes, why do you drink as much as you do? And I go, because I'm hoping that every night that I drink is the last night I'm here. And that's the same way that I felt with the other stuff, right, with the pills. And, because if you told me at 18 that I was going to be seeing 29, I was going to laugh at you.
Yeah. Because
I had no intentions of making it this far. No. And that's why I tell people, especially in meetings, I say it all the time, I have to accept whatever happens because I wasn't expecting to be here. The fact that I'm sober and functional and productive it's all gravy,
And I think what you're doing here is awesome. Like
I
said, when you sent me the previous episodes, I was like, absolutely. Because not that I had any question of ever doing this, but I was like, it meant so much more to watch those. And I listened to them, like all of them, the one with your brother and the one, I can't remember the names because I'm terrible with it, but it was just, we're here for a reason, Jake. And I tell you, like, there's people, like I said earlier, people don't meet by accident. And I'm just, it's nice and to see the benefit that you're putting out.
Thank you. Sincerely.
Absolutely.
That really does mean a lot. Cause, I'll have days, especially if I have bad days, and I'll share in a meeting, and I'll leave the meeting and be like, that was the stupidest fucking thing I could have said.
Not
like,
at all. And actually, when you mentioned something about people chairing, and that was one thing, because I chair a lot of meetings, and I was speaking with somebody, and sometimes when you're chairing meetings, you don't feel like you can not be okay. Everybody's looking at you, looking up to you because of where you're at, and it's tough to admit you're struggling when you're in that chair, you know. And I had a conversation with somebody that was chairing that's struggling, and it's like we're gonna struggle. It's the thing is now it's uncomfortable to struggle. You know, we don't like that, and you know, when I was in the middle of my addiction, somebody's like, well, how do you explain it? And I was like, you ever drive down 81 and it's pouring rain and then you go underneath the bridge and everything clears up for a second? That was how I felt on drugs. Everything was clear, everything was good. But then guess what? You got to go outside the other side of that bridge. And this is what I said to my counselor. And she goes, what storm are you running from? And I said, damn, I didn't really.
Damn.
I was like, all right, well, there's me put my foot in my mouth again.
Yeah.
But, you know, and they were very right. And it's like, that's why why can't you just stop? Why can't you just stop? It's like, okay, well, if you had the flu, and that's how I explained it, would you pay $20 to get rid of it? There's not a person in this world that wouldn't say, yeah, I'd give you $20 to get rid of that because it feels like shit. Yeah, well, that's how it was. And then 20 became 40, became 80, became 100, and then all of a sudden, now this flu is just going on. And the only way to get rid of that is monetarily and time. You know, like that's the only thing you can't get back is your time. And that's why much like yourself, I want to dedicate my time to helping other addicts and other people in recovery, because it's not an easy road, and it's not straight. Like we were saying, you know, like I was talking to you about the golf analogy, and it still sticks in my mind all the time. Like, you're gonna hit bad shots. It's just you can't expect to be perfect when you practiced being a fuck up for 20 years. You know, it's like you know, and that's why I get so against the practice makes perfect. I used to hate that because I'd be like, well, I've been practicing, and I'm not perfect. So what am I doing wrong? You know, like, and the first time I noticed this was when I was in football in high school, and we practiced multiple times a day. And I think I told you this.
Yeah.
Like, but we still suck. You know, and it's like, well, practice makes progress. It doesn't make perfect. You know, and it's like, well, must all be you guys, because I know I don't suck.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's like, and that's the ego. And like, so many things correlate with recovery throughout life, and all you have to do is look for it.
I'm glad you mentioned the practice with football thing, because I had a similar story with a friend of mine, because I used to do taekwondo.
I remember you saying that before.
And there were, like, between our school and the school in Rochester, in my weight class and age range, there were 3 guys that were always like, it was like with tennis, where you had like Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal. You'd have me and these 2 other gentlemen. And there was me, who I never practiced. I just had like the natural talent, and I didn't mind getting hit,
right?
You know? So, you know, there was me, and then there was another guy that was like super, super athletic, super gifted, super talented, but also didn't work as hard, but he worked harder than me. And then there was a third guy who wasn't athletically gifted, didn't have the natural ability, but he worked harder than all 3 of us. You know which of the 3 of us is still doing it and is still kicking ass and winning medals? It's that third guy that works the absolute hardest. And we have actually had him on the other show a long time ago, and that was the thing I've talked to him about. It's like, dude, I go, it might sound weird because you're only like a year or 2 older than me, but you were like a huge inspiration for me always, because like you just worked your fucking ass off, and you got to reap the rewards. And I got to sit there being like, why is he so much better than me? This is bullshit. And it's like, oh yeah, Jake, because on Friday nights and Saturday nights, you're smoking pot and eating Dominoes with your buddies, and he's in the gym,
right?
You know, and on Sundays he's in the school all day, and you're sitting there recovering and playing Call of Duty all day. Like, and recovery feels like that for me. You know, when I had Jesse on, Jesse asked me, he's like, do you feel like you could have stayed sober without going to Philly? And I said, yes, but I never would have learned what recovery is.
Right.
I never would have recovered, because I thought, and I think a lot of people feel this way, like, oh, well, abstinence. And I think you mentioned earlier, there's a difference between sobriety and recovery. Like, oh, I'm not drinking or drugging anymore. So, all right, there we go.
Right.
But it's not about that. You got to fix the demonic shit inside you.
Right.
You
Because
know,
there's
like,
a reason we started that.
yeah.
You know, it's not because I woke up one day and was like, I want to waste the next 20 years and all this money and all of this, you know, everything that my parents wanted for me. You know, that's irrelevant. I want to be this way. It's like, no, there was something there. And I would say that I grew up pretty normal. You know, my sisters never smoked a cigarette. Same household.
Right.
You know, my brother's, he's finally getting sober, which is a blessing. And, you know, I went live with my dad. My brother and sister lived with my mom. But we just went all different routes, you know, and they say it's hereditary and, you know, there's the, you know, genes. It's like my parents didn't have addiction problems, you know, and so like, where did this come from? You know, it's like, and a lot of it came to my dad worked, like he worked on the road a lot. So I had my own house and all the bills were paid. And of course, when you have your own house at 15 and 16, all the older kids want to come hang out. Well, now I get addicted to this center of attention. Everybody's at my house. The girls are coming around. The drugs are coming around. I'm important, you know, and that was addicting. And that's where it came from. And all of a sudden, when everybody else is like stopping, it's like, well, what for?
Yeah. Party's still gone.
Yeah.
You know?
Like,
what are you doing?
Yeah. Like that was like, A's for quitters. You know, those sayings, you know, like, it's only a bender when you stop. Yeah, you know, it's like, you know, and I used to think because I scheduled my benders that it was that it was a schedule and not a problem. It's like I planned on this. Like it wasn't like it came out of the blue. I planned on this, you know, and then it came Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then the only reason I would stop is either I had other obligations, which were recovering, and I don't mean recovery abstinence, I mean getting rid of my hangover. And then it would just go on, and then it turned into, instead of being Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then it was all week, and then it was, well, if you guys don't want to party, I'll find somebody else who wants to party. And that's became the validation and, you know, the promiscuity and all those other things that we've spoke about.
For sure. Yeah, and that's you sent me to space with the scheduling, the benders thing, because this is the notebook I had when I was down in rehab, and other than the opiates, I used whatever I could, and it was so funny because I would literally have a spreadsheet, like a calendar, color coded, because I didn't want to get addicted, and I'd be like, all right, well, I'll drink on Monday. I'll do coke Tuesday, Wednesday. I'll do acid on Thursday. I'll do mushrooms Friday. Like I literally was, I was doing Benadryl. I was stealing Ambien from people. Like, I mean, there was literally a time, there was not a single 24-hour period where I was not fucked up on something. And it would be whatever it was. I mean, I can't remember if I had to have mentioned it at Oak Hill. I mentioned designer drugs.
Yeah.
And, like I remember going on like Reddit or 4chan or any of those other websites and just like research chemicals. And it was just like, well, this is supposed to make you feel like you're on ecstasy, but you could just get it in the mail. Or like buying like raw organic seeds for plants from Hawaii that if you soak in lemon juice and drink the lemon juice, you trip for 12 hours. And
that was the System of a Down song, the eating seeds, the pastime activity. So I thought that, okay, well,
I thought they were eating sunflower seeds.
Yeah.
Wait, hang on a second. Seth and I love System of a Down.
I'm pretty sure it was poppy seeds.
I think you might be right. No shit. I thought it was sunflower seeds this whole time.
That's funny. And I remember like Coricidin and Unisom and all of these other things. And then one of my buddies was like, you know, you can trip off the fungus from rye bread. Okay, so now I'm in high school and I keep this rye bread in my locker for, it had to have been 2 months. And it's fungied out, you know, and so I ate it. Well, guess what? No, you can't trip. You just get sick and feel like shit, you know, and that still it didn't stop me from looking for all of these ways to get high. And it was, you know, the robo tripping and all of these things that just, when you think about it, it's crazy.
And I think the worst thing too was like growing up, like for me, growing up in the age of the internet and social media, like I MySpace was still a thing when I was like 12, 13, 14, and then Facebook, then it was full bore like Reddit and 4chan, and you could find communities for any substance you wanted. But if I had the perspective now back then, I would realize, oh, there are probably some of these people that can just do this normally. Probably not most of them, but there's probably a good amount of people that are just like, yeah, fuck it, we'll just drink Robitussin this weekend. Not me. I would go. My parents lived by Ruby Tuesday, and I would, in the winter time, in the middle of a snowstorm, I would go in the laundry room and find coins and then walk all the way to Walmart to buy a bottle of Robitussin and then drink it on the way home. And then I would like map it out in my, I'm glad you mentioned the analogy about the storm. Because like for me, the storm I was running away from was just the fact that I wasn't who everybody thought I was.
Right.
But then the other side of that coin got off on that, where it was like I had this alter ego, like depending on the situation, you know, you had Jake, like the nice, well-dressed, well-spoken, like funny guy. And then you had, you know, Jake that was just this terror that was, you know, and it's wild. And being able to identify that and got like so grateful I'm able to like laugh and joke about it now. Like I was telling my dad earlier, I was telling him stories about the times my gut kicked in, good ways and bad. And like there should have been so many times where that night out was supposed to be the last one, but I still made it home. And I think that's why I never stopped.
Right.
Nothing catastrophic ever
Kept
happened.
getting away with it.
I never had to go into, I never went to the hospital for, you know, kicking opiates or kicking alcohol on, or during that time. I didn't go to the hospital for alcohol until after I quit. And it was like the second day without a drink, and I fainted at work getting ready for a meeting. I fell. All my papers went everywhere, and everyone was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like white as a ghost. They brought me to the hospital, and I still went to my manipulating thing. And here I am being brought to the ER that I used to work in, the crew that I used to work with that knew I was trying to get sober. But I knew that if I told them that I was having alcohol withdrawals, I was going to be sent to someplace. So I just told them, "Oh, I just don't know. All I know is I need a banana bag and fluids." And they're looking at me like, "Okay, dehydration."
Yeah.
You know, even though they knew. God bless them for that. But yeah, it's and that's what I like, what I do here, what we're doing now, and like going to meetings and stuff, because I needed to hear this then.
Right.
You know.
And that was, like I said, when I went to that roundup, you know, they have a countdown from 50. Well, they start at 75 years, but there's not too many people there 75 years sober because either they weren't there or they had passed on. But like it goes 50, 49, all the way down to 24 hours. And you see these, I'll call it what it is, kids. You know, there's, you know, I'm 40, so like 20-year-olds, 18-year-olds that are getting sober. And it's like, I wish. And part of me is like, I wish I would have figured it out that long ago. But then the other part of me is like, what happened in their life?
Right.
Where they're now at 19 years old decide they need to get sober. Because I know what I went through. I know the stuff that I did to myself. And it took me 22 years before I decided it. And it started as a party. You know, like I traveled around and I go to a lot of concerts, and it was just, I just was so addicted to all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I would get arrested, I was smarter than the court system, you know, like, no, my daddy had money, you know, like they lost my charges one time. And then one time when they had a warrant and they found what I had in my car, but they had a warrant for my house. So I got away with it. So I'm dodging all these, and there was no repercussions. But then when all of a sudden my luck ran out, the repercussions were very big, you know, and now like I still I mean, I'm so grateful for the program at Drug Court because it keeps you accountable. And now like the desire for drugs and alcohol is gone, but I still have that cover my ass mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working on that, but it's definitely one of those defects like I spoke about that I'm fond of. It's like I try to instill into my daughter that life is not peaches and rainbows. I don't want her to go to the extreme that I went to cover her ass, but I want her to realize that you have to be alert. you know? It's like, and right now, I love the fact that when I go out with somebody, they feel safe with me because of how alert I am. So there's benefits of that now that I'm sober.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, for sure. And for me too, it's like I didn't hit the repercussions until I went to rehab. I've shared before on the air and in meetings where, you know, I got let go from that job only like a day or two before I came home. And a lot of people were worried. They were like, well, now you're coming home unemployed. Now what are you going to do? And I remember telling my parents, I was like, you don't have to worry. I go, because for the first time in my life, people believe me. People are taking me seriously. And like that, it could be a selfish way to look at it. I mean, maybe it definitely is, but like that's what's keeping me from going back out.
Yes.
Because for the first, you know, I have an extended period of time where I'm being seen and I'm listened to and respected.
For the person you are.
For the person I am and not for the things that I can get or the things that I do. And that's the biggest benefit to all this so far.
Well, and that's one thing too, like I have, you know, the keys to my parents' house and the recovery center in Fulton and Serenity Hall. And it's like, people trust me.
Right.
And as great a feeling as that is for me, I couldn't imagine how great a feeling that is for my parents to be able to not have to worry about something coming up missing or getting the phone call that every parent dreads. And it's like, now there's, for the first time in forever, they got 3 sober kids and so they can sleep at night. Because for the longest time, they weren't comfortable unless I was locked up, or, you know, now I answer the phone and I return phone calls instead of like, I mean, there's times when I won't talk to my dad for a couple of days, but he's not worried about me laying in the ditch somewhere or being in jail. It's like, right, he's just busy doing his recovery stuff or school and work and all this other stuff that I do just to keep myself busy and to maintain the life that I have now. And like I was saying earlier, you know, I'm content, but there's a difference between content and complacent. And, you know, I notice myself sometimes, because I am busy, backing off on meetings because I'm tired. And I think that's the justification that I'm like, I need to remember how I got to where I'm at, because I'm more exhausted when I don't go to meetings than when I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, it's so, 100%.
And you know, if I'm being 100% honest, if I don't go to, it's 1 hour. So that's probably not the reason that I'm tired. It's probably the 12 hours of football, or, you know what I mean? It's like, well, I can't fit all this into one day. It's like, well, you have to take your priorities and put them in order, you know? So if I miss a meeting, chances are I'm not catching up on sleep. I'm probably doom scrolling or whatever else. So I've never been to a meeting when I left and been like, oh, I wish I didn't go to that, you know, but I've plenty of times not went and been like, I really wish I went.
It ruins your night.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
And that's why, like, a lot of the old timers say it, but they'll say like, there's only 2 times you should go to a meeting: when you want to go and when you don't want to go. And I've been drilling that into my head, because there's days, especially like you're busy, you know, you go to work, I'll go to work, I get out right at 5:30. It's why I like, especially Saturday, Sunday, I show up like an hour early, because like, I hate walking. I always like to read How It Works. That's my favorite thing. But like, I hate walking in late. And there's a few times where I'm like just last weekend, we were down in Pennsylvania for some family things, and I felt like shit Sunday, because by the time I got home Sunday and I got settled in, and I was like, oh, I could go to the 6 p.m. meeting. I don't really feel like it. I'm really tired. It's been a long weekend. And then I got to be like 6:20 and I was just doing nothing. And I was like, fuck,
right.
God, why didn't I just go?
Right.
And now whenever I have the feeling of not going to a meeting, I remind myself like, no, if you don't go, you're going to wish you did.
Yep.
And like you said, yeah. And even if there are meetings where I like beat myself up afterwards, I know that it's just like that weird darkness in my head trying to manipulate some weird shit.
And that's the thing with like, a lot of times I'll strategically sit somewhere because somebody's chairing and they know usually I have something to say, you know, because I feel, well, 1, I hate uncomfortable silence, you know, and then 2, I feel like I have so many stories, I don't have to repeat myself all the time. The only thing that I don't like about it is when everybody else, I like when everybody else shares because then I can respond to their sharing. If I
Yeah.
share first, then I'm wanting to double dip the whole time because I got shit I got to say because I still am the most important person in the room. You know,
I
like,
get that. Yeah. I know. That's why it was really funny. And somebody actually spoke to me after the meeting this morning. They're like, man, we didn't get to you today, did we? I'm like, it's fine. I go,
neither
it's
one of
fine.
us.
Neither one of I knew that was gonna happen too. They started right like if it's like a semicircle, we were right at the very end. And you know, and that used to bother the shit out of me. That used to bother the shit out of me. And I was like, no, I had things to say. And it's like, no, maybe I was only supposed to be there to listen.
Right. And I think that's important too because a lot of the people that shared today don't often. I mean, a lot of them do, but there was a few that the older lady that sat over in the corner, you know, you could tell she needed to talk, you know, and I was at the roundup with her and awesome time.
Oh my God. One of and this is the thing too. We never would have met any of these people
No.
without this. And it's just like, it's incredible. Yeah.
And I enjoy hearing the, you know, it's encouraging seeing, you know, how much sobriety they have. And also when you talk to somebody there that's like had 13 years, but then went back out.
Yes.
It's like, it brings it to a whole new perspective of how much work it does take and how quickly that devil on your shoulder can come back. You know, it's so important to remember that it's a lifelong commitment.
There's a gentleman that doesn't go in too often, but he has almost 40 years. And I remember asking him one of the first times I met him, and I was like, hey, so how, not like respectfully, but how do you remember what you were like back then when it's been decades upon decades? And he goes, that's why you keep coming back. You know, and I actually had a disagreement a while ago with somebody close to me about like, well, all you guys do is you sit in a meeting and you sit in self-pity and wallow about how shitty you used to be. And I go, sure, if you want to look at it that way, I don't agree with that.
Right.
I think we're sharing our experience, strength, and hope. Like we're sharing, you know, we all are the same. That's why it's so funny, especially when I share. That's why I love Friday nights. 'Cause Friday nights, I have
My favorite.
I have the whole week of shit building up, and Friday night, I'm like, they always call on me. They're like, Jake, do you have a topic? And I'm like, you know it. I always,
You know, and respectfully, I don't know who you're speaking of that said that, but they probably either have not been to a lot of meetings or maybe none. So they just know what, you know, when I was, AA is a cult. It's, you know, it's like all this other stuff that people like, maybe they don't have the issues that we had. So they don't
Right.
they don't appreciate the value of that fellowship. And that's what I do. It's like, and that's why I keep going. And the Friday 5:30 and the Saturday 9 a.m. back to back like that are so crucial to my whole week. You know, because I know when I miss those, you know, and there's no reason to miss those because I'm home all for those, you know, so it's only me backing off on what I know works. And I have to be reminded. And when I do, like, people reach out. It's like, you know, because I think that this happens, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when I see people not, and we spoke about this earlier, not show up to a meeting, my mind immediately goes to the worst because I know the struggles and I know how hard it is. So it's like, well, no, maybe they're just out, maybe they just worked late, you know. So, but I guess it's the expectations that we also spoke about. You know, like I expect everybody to be at every meeting, even though I'm not.
right? Yeah. No, and I think that's the biggest thing, and that's the thing I struggle with, and I've mentioned it before. Is like when people do go back out, how do you go about not taking it to heart? And I remember the person I was speaking to said, "Well, it's okay to.
Right.
You're almost supposed to.
Right.
Because if you didn't, then you didn't give a shit."
Right.
And that kind of almost completely turned it around on me, where I was like, oh, no, it's a good thing that I'm worried. It's a good thing that I care. It's a good thing I check in because, you know, the dark side of me wants to think I'm being annoying or pushy, but really it's just like I'm not used to an actual connection.
Right.
I'm used to.
And it's the care that you have for those people.
Correct.
And the want that, you know, for them to be the best version of themselves. And we spoke about this when you were talking about the guy. How do you remember, you know, everybody speaks about wanting to go back to the person they were before the drugs and alcohol. And I'm like, I don't know who I was before that.
Right.
I don't remember. Like, I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse, but like they're trying to get back their old self, and I'm trying to reinvent a new self because I don't know what it was like prior. Like of course I'm in elementary school and all that or whatever, but that wasn't the person that I'm supposed to be. I was a kid. I was doing kid stuff. But as soon as I could, I was out. I was doing everything I could. So now I'm trying to find things that I enjoy. And I enjoy recovery. I enjoy these conversations. I enjoy seeing the people come into these rooms. And somebody came in a couple weeks ago that I went to school with, and he was struggling, and it was just God's work because he didn't expect to see me there. He's not even from the area.
Right. I remember that.
Yeah. So he came in, and I was like, when I spoke, I'm like, I grew up with this kid, but now I get to grow old with him because we're sober. And that was, it tugged at my heart. And we had a emotional embracing at the end, and we both teared up because it's like, we know that we deserve better, and that's what's important, is knowing that you do.
Big time. Yeah. And it comes down to, somebody's told me that you're not building a sober future. You're building a sober past that you can look back on.
Yes. Building a sober past. I love him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
he speaks, he has a lot of wisdom.
Yeah.
And he was, there's actually a couple people in there that were drug counselors. And it's like, it just goes to show you that it doesn't discriminate.
No.
No. There's so many people, like one was a college professor, and there's one person that was a doctor, and it doesn't matter. Everybody has similar reasons to go out, and all our stories are different, but they're not.
No.
It's like we all have different routes, but we're all have similar goals. And that's to be the best version we can, whether it be for first and foremost ourselves, because everything else falls in line. I can't be the best person for anybody else if I'm not the best version of myself. And that's where it comes in, especially, at the, like I said, the Fulton Recovery Center. It's important. I love, and they love it too, is people come in and they ask for me, because I have a different relationship with people. I get it. And no disrespect to the people that learned about addiction in a book, but addicts know that. And we realize that. And I said that to one person at one of my first, second, third, or fourth rehab, whatever it was. But I said, no disrespect, but what book did you learn that from? Because that's not true. It's like, and then it takes the validity of everything else that person says. Because now I can't take you at face value because you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, you're telling me one thing. You learned it in a book. I learned it in the streets. I lived it, and that's why I like what I do, because that's the one thing that I struggle with is I can't say professional boundaries, but the verbiage,
tact.
Right. Because I don't sugarcoat it. It's like, because I get it. I don't want you to give me those $1 million words. And I want you to speak from the heart. I want, first and foremost, I'm a human, and second, like, I get what you're going through. I went through it. It's just, hopefully you figure it out quicker than I did, and I see people, like I said, 47 years sober. I couldn't imagine, like, that just seems so far for me, and we were talking about the accolades because we're sober, and like, oh, how come we don't get pats on the back? And it's like, because everybody's seen this dog and pony show before. How many times have we been sober and then decided that we don't need to keep the pace?
I quit drinking 11 times in a year before it stuck,
Right. I had 12 years sober, and then I turned 13,
No, yeah, and it's just that's powerful, man. It just is, and I had no intentions of getting sober. I had no intentions of going to rehab. I had no intentions of sticking with it. I had no intentions of going to when I got to the recovery house, like sober living house, and they're like, all right, get your shoes on. We're going to go. And I'm like, oh, what are we doing? We going out to the city? We're going to go out to dinner? They're like, no, we're going to a meeting.
Right.
And I go, a meeting? I thought class was over at 3. They're like, no, we have to go to AA Monday through Friday. And I was like, oh, that's dumb. And I still keep, like, people see me
I see that all the time.
The chip. Yeah. This was the first chip I ever got. I have quite a few chips, but this is the one I keep on me because that was where like that was where my faith was born. The first meeting I went to, you've heard this story before, the listeners heard it before, but the first meeting I went to, somebody after the meeting knew I was from Oswego.
Right.
And started talking to me about Oswego. The guy that gave me this 24-hour chip handed it to me and he goes, wow, that's really cool. Usually 24-hour chips aren't metal. This is a special one. And he hands it to me. And then the guy that handed me my first chip was the foreman for the job that I got when I was down there. And I was like, how the fuck?
God's work.
Yeah. And like I said, like my brother and I didn't speak after our mother passed away. And the same week that I checked myself into rehab, I get a phone call from him and he checked himself into rehab. We had no connection to that at all. And I was like, it all came full circle.
It's a parlay off of that. So I didn't think about it when I got my badge for the roundup. I wrote my first and last name on it. So, and like, I forget that I don't care so much about the anonymity on my part.
Same.
Everybody else's I respect. So I wrote Ryan Parker on it. Well, the guy shared a story and I went up to him and I was like, bro, your story is almost identical to mine. He goes, your last name's Parker? I said, yeah. He goes, mine too. I said, unreal.
That's crazy.
Out of all the people, there's 7,000 people here.
Right.
The one guy I go up to talk to, and I had wrote my name just by some slim chance, and they had the same last name. And it was a similar story where his daughter seen his arrest in the paper and was like, this can't happen, and then blocked him, which happened to me. And it's just like, but now we have the greatest relationship with our kids, and it's because, that's, and I get emotional thinking about it because she said, I'm proud of you, and it's like, it's tough, and she gets it. And I'm so grateful that I'm honest with her about everything because it's like being a cop's kid. You either are complete straight edge or you go complete astray.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily for me, I went out with a girl that I was seeing a while ago, and my daughter and her boyfriend, and the girl says, you hear what they're talking about back there? And my mind went the worst. It's like, what books they're reading. I'm like, I can't, that's my kid? Like, I only read when I'm locked up.
Right.
But it's just, and she's, she asked me, she's like, can we go to, and she's my favorite person to go to concerts with. One, because she don't drink. Two, because she don't bitch, like, and if she does, I can't hear her. So it's like, and when she's always looking back to see if I'm there. And it's not because she wonders if I am, it's because she knows I am. It's like, she doesn't have to, she can enjoy herself. And we went to Lil Wayne this past year, and everybody's video on the stage, and I found myself recording my daughter enjoying herself with her friend because I was sober and I was aware and I was present, and that meant so much more than the concert on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and of course she wants to see Jonas Brothers too, and we go to many concerts, and for the first one that was real impactful was, she's like, can we go to a concert? And I'm like, I can only imagine. Billie Eilish, I'm assuming, she goes, Metallica. I said, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then my dad bought us the tickets because they were $400 a piece.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a Christmas gift, because no handouts.
That was at the Dome?
Yes.
That was an incredible show.
It was.
That was unreal.
I had such a good time.
I cried the whole time.
Oh, it was awesome. And the thing was, I don't know if you know who Prof is.
Oh, my God, yeah.
So I went to Brooklyn with this girl to see Prof at a small show, 400 people. She builds the stage for all these. So then I meet her there randomly, and she gives my daughter one of the guitar picks. And it was just like, the way things work is just insane. And I tell you what, and that's why I developed the faith that I have, because finally my faith is stronger than my fear. And that's so important. Like, I'm so blessed to be able to enjoy this recovery with you and other people.
Likewise, brother. Perfect way to end it right there.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you for being on. Thank you for listening and watching.
We end it with Lord's Prayer.
Sounds good to me, brother.
All right, take us home.
All right. Who woke us up today?
Our
Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever.
Amen.
Amen. Out of the Woods. Thank you again.
Thanks again.
Hell yeah.